Right here, so that should be, I guess, good for
Okay.
all of us.
Does that work for you?
You guys are good?
All right. So let me know, everybody ready?
Yes. 1 second. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll start off with my name. I am Michael Reed. I'm a deputy chief with the Fresno Police Department in charge of the patrol division. Right before 8 o'clock tonight, we started receiving 911 calls about shootings that occurred on East Lamona, specifically the 5300 block of East Lamona. As officers arrived, we began to get several calls about shooting victims also in the area. Officers came in and they saw 3 people that were down immediately. They were all Asian males between 25 and 30, and CPR was started immediately. There was about 35 people that it looks like that were inside the house and inside the backyard. They were at a football party, so this was a family gathering. The initial information is that somebody came up on foot, possibly at least one suspect, and began firing. They fired into the backyard where most of the people were in this party, striking 10 people in the course of that gunshot. Preliminarily, 3 people died on scene, all Asian males between the ages of 25 and 30. One was critical, was transported to CRMC, where he succumbed to his injuries. We have 5 additional people at CRMC with non-life-threatening gunshot wounds, and one Asian male that came up later on during the investigation and said that he had a graze wound. He was taken to St. Agnes Medical Center where he's receiving treatment right now. First off, our heart goes out to the families that were the victims of the thing. This is senseless violence. We're going to do everything we can to find out who the perpetrators are and bring them to justice. But right now, what we want is our thoughts and prayers going out for the families and the survivors of the senseless shooting right now. So that's the preliminary information I have. I will open it up for questions.
Any indication that the shooter knew the victims?
We have no indication of that at all. It's preliminary right now, so we're just getting statements from the 25 to 30 people remaining on scene.
And suspect or suspects, do we know how many?
We have no idea right now.
So 4 people total died?
Yes.
Do we know if there's gang relation in that at all?
We have no indication of that whatsoever, but that's something that we're going to look at during the course of the investigation.
Any idea what type of gun might have been used?
We have no indication of that right now. We've locked down the crime scene. Obviously, this is a fluid situation. We have multiple investigators here right now, so we're going to be collecting the evidence. Thank God that no kids were hurt, because there are several kids and females that were in attendance at this party. So right now, all 10 of the victims, deceased or not, were all Asian males between that 25, 35 range.
So now you're collecting evidence, and then what else are you doing in terms of the suspect?
Well, we put a lot of resources on this, obviously. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be canvassing the neighborhood to see if we have any other witnesses. We're going to be taking statements from people that are inside the house at this moment. We're going to be taking statements from people that are at the hospital. We're going to exhaust every investigative lead we can to find out who did this, why they did this, and bring those folks to justice.
Do we know where the shooter was in relation to these people when he got to the home?
The initial information from some of the witnesses was that it started out on Lamona and walked to the backyard through a side access area. So it looked like it came from the front to the back.
Did he enter the home or did he fire from outside?
Preliminarily, we don't have any gunshots that we found inside, thank God, because that could have been a tragedy all by itself. But that's going to be part of the investigation as we do a comprehensive investigation of the whole house.
The 3 people down, were they outside the house or inside the house?
They were outside the house. All the victims were outside the house in the backyard.
Sir, how many total shots were fired?
We don't know that. That's under investigation right now.
And would you say that this is a mass shooting?
When there's multiple victims of homicide, yes.
Is this a gang-related, any information?
We're going to investigate whether there's any gang connection, but preliminarily we don't have any indication of that at all.
Does any of the victims know the shooter?
Well, we haven't identified the shooter, so we don't know that, but we'll be gathering that in the witness statements. But as of right now, we don't have any information that anybody knew anybody.
Suspect left in the car, somebody was with him or by himself? Or?
We're looking at that. Hopefully we'll find some surveillance cameras from private homes in this area that we can get an indication of that. But we don't know whether it was on foot or in a vehicle.
Do we know if it was the rifle was used, assault rifle or a gun or anything?
We don't have any indication that it was a rifle or an assault rifle right now.
Any neighbors or property was damaged while they shot it?
We're going to canvass very seriously to find out if there were. There's always a likelihood that one of the bullets got outside of that back area, so we'll be looking for that. But right now, It looks like it's contained in the backyard.
Were you guys able to get any surveillance footage from the neighbor?
We're looking for that right now as we speak.
And initially, we were told the calls started coming in before 6. Was 8 the actual time?
Yeah, it was 17:56, I believe, when the time came.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes.
When you have a situation like this with multiple victims, I mean, how do you guys work in treating it? Certain ones get taken to the hospital before others. How does that work?
Well, we work hand in hand with EMS and fire, and we go through what's called a mass casualty protocol, where we go and we start assessing the severity of the injuries. So obviously the first people were probably having CPR done by officers at that time. Those folks, if they could be transported, were. As soon as EMS and fire came and the scene was secure, they made an assessment, and then we transported based on the priority that they dictated. So the most severely injured went to the hospital first.
And you said there's 4 dead, so how many total victims, including wounded?
10,
10. Okay,
Yes.
so 6 just wounded, taken to the hospital.
yes.
Are there any other agencies that may be called in, or is Fresno PD leading this investigation?
We have the resources to be able to do this. We have the expertise to do this, so we're on it right now. Of course, if we needed any assistance, we would call for that, but typically Fresno PD has the resources to be able to do something like this.
And you said that all the victims were Asian males. Is it accurate to say that they're all Hmong?
We don't know exactly the ethnicity of them all. One of the deceased hasn't been identified affirmatively yet, so we're working on that. But Southeast Asian or Asian males, I think is safe to say.
Prior to the shooting, was there any kind of disturbance at the same residence or not?
We had no calls for service at that location. In fact, it's a very quiet one. We look at premise histories as we come in. So what this looks like was a party of Asian males that came for a football game. And most of them had jerseys on, and it looks like something terrible happened. Again, I want to repeat that our hearts go out for Fresno PD to the families, also to the survivors that have to deal with this thing. We will use every resource at our hands to be able to solve this thing as soon as possible. But I want to make sure that our thoughts and prayers stay with the victims and the families of this incident.
And are you giving out any instructions to the surrounding community just in terms of staying safe with the suspect?
After we get more information, we may be able to do that. What we want to do is we want to make sure we give out accurate information. And if there is any danger at all, that's our first priority, is make sure everybody stays safe. So, of course, that information would go out. But until we find out something that's actionable, we're going to investigate this thing and get all the leads that we can and follow those leads.
So is there danger?
Well, the fact that there was a shooting at a residence in what's a relatively peaceful area of Fresno, southeast Fresno, causes people concern, and it should. What we have to do is we have to look at what the connection was with the violence. That's part of the investigation. But we also want to make sure that we contact every one of the neighbors here and assure them that they're safe. So we're going to have extra patrol folks out here tonight. Obviously, this crime scene is going to be here for quite a while. But we'll make sure we contact the neighbors and let them know what happened, what we can, and if there's any danger, we would pass that on.
And did you say that there are any leads on anything about the shooter?
Not yet, no. It's very, very early in the investigation.
Is it possible this was a targeting shooting because of the amount of people that were inside of the house?
It's very likely that it was targeted. We just don't know why. Because somebody picked that house and came up and shot several times on the back side of it. It looks like there was a target. We just don't know what the reason for the targeting was.
Any idea how many people were in the backyard at the time of the shooting?
We estimate between the inside of the house and the outside, 35 people to 40 people.
Unknown total, how many just outside?
Now, as we get the witness statements, we'll be able to kind of figure out who was outside, who was inside. But luckily, most of the children and the women were on the inside, and we don't, at least now, find any stray rounds that went onto the inside of the house.
Nobody at the house were able to recognize the car or the person?
We haven't had anybody come forward with that information, but again, as things calm down a little bit, as we talk to people, gain their confidence, we might get more information, and that's certainly something we're looking for.
Right.
Anything else?
Your first and last name, sir, once again, please.
Michael Reed, R-E-I-D.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
You got to unwire me.